Train Your Mouth to Talk Graded Reader Speak Fluently English. The first time I realized my mouth did not listen to my brain, I was standing in a small coffee shop on a quiet American street. The smell of roasted beans filled the air, warm and comforting, and soft music played in the background. Everything felt calm. Everything felt easy. Until the barista smiled at me and asked a simple question, "What can I get started for you today?" In my mind, the answer was clear. I had practiced it many times. I wanted a hot coffee with milk. Simple. Easy. Words I knew well. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. My tongue felt heavy. My lips froze. My throat tightened as if my body had suddenly forgotten how speaking worked. Seconds passed. The barista kept smiling, patient and kind. People stood behind me, waiting. My heart began to beat faster. My face felt hot. I knew the words, but my mouth refused to move. That moment taught me something important. Speaking English was not just about knowing words. It was about training the mouth. It was about building confidence not only in the mind, but in the muscles that shape sound. That day, I managed to whisper my order in broken English, but I walked out with more than coffee. I walked out with a decision. I decided I would train my mouth to talk. Back then, I believed fluency was something magical. I thought fluent speakers were born with a special talent. I imagined English flowing naturally from their lips like music, without effort, without fear. I told myself stories about how difficult English was and how easy it must be for others, but over time, I learned something different. Fluency is not magic. It is muscle memory. It is repetition. It is courage built slowly, day by day, sentence by sentence. When I first began, I did not sound confident. My voice was soft. My pronunciation was unclear. I stopped in the middle of sentences, afraid of making mistakes. Sometimes I apologized before even speaking. Sometimes I avoided speaking at all. I remember sitting alone in my room at night, holding a book in my hands. I would read sentences silently with ease. My understanding was good. My listening was improving. But when I tried to read out loud, my mouth struggled. Sounds felt unfamiliar. My tongue stumbled over simple words. I sounded like a beginner, even though I understood much more. That was frustrating. It felt unfair. My brain was ready, but my mouth was not, so I changed my approach. Instead of focusing only on learning new words, I focused on training my mouth. I treated speaking like learning a musical instrument or training for a sport. You cannot think your way into strong muscles. You must use them. Every morning, before the world became noisy, I spoke out loud. Not quietly. Not in my head. I spoke clearly, even if no one was listening. I talked to the mirror. I described my day. I talked about the weather, my plans, my thoughts, my worries. At first, it felt strange. I felt silly talking to myself. My accent sounded heavy. My sentences felt slow and awkward. But I kept going. I learned that fluency does not begin with perfect sentences. It begins with movement. Your mouth needs practice just like your legs need practice to run. If you wait until you are perfect to speak, you will never speak. There were days when I felt progress. Words came out faster. My confidence grew. and then there were days when everything felt worse again. I made mistakes. I forgot simple words. I mixed grammar. My pronunciation felt unclear. Those days were hard. But they were normal. One afternoon, I met a neighbor while taking out the trash. He smiled and asked how my day was going. Normally, I would answer with one short sentence and escape. That day, I decided to stay. My heart raced, but I kept talking. I talked about work, about learning English, about how difficult and exciting it was. I made mistakes. I paused. I searched for words. But something amazing happened. He listened. He did not laugh. He did not correct me. He nodded and responded naturally. That conversation changed me. It showed me that real communication is not about perfection. It is about connection. People do not care if your grammar is perfect. They care if your message is clear and your effort is honest. From that moment, I started speaking whenever I could. At the store. On the phone. With strangers. With friends. Each conversation trained my mouth a little more. I learned to slow down. Fluency does not mean speed. Fluency means flow. When I slowed my speech, my pronunciation improved. My confidence grew. I stopped trying to sound like someone else and started sounding like myself. I paid attention to how native speakers moved their mouths. I noticed how relaxed they were. Their jaws opened naturally. Their lips moved freely. They were not tense. They were not afraid. Fear was my biggest enemy. Fear of mistakes. Fear of judgment. Fear of sounding foolish. But fear tightens the mouth. Fear blocks sound. Confidence opens it. To fight fear, I practiced reading stories out loud. Stories helped me feel emotion. They gave my voice life. Instead of repeating boring sentences, I lived inside the words. I felt the characters. I spoke with feeling. Slowly, my mouth learned rhythm. It learned stress and melody. English stopped sounding flat. It started sounding alive. I also recorded my voice. At first, I hated listening to myself. My accent sounded strange. My mistakes felt loud. But over time, I heard improvement. I noticed clearer sounds. Stronger confidence. Fewer pauses. That was powerful. It reminded me that progress often happens quietly. You do not notice it day by day, but when you look back, you see how far you have come. One evening, I received a phone call from a company about a job opportunity. In the past, I would have panicked. I would have avoided the call or kept my answers short. That day, I answered confidently. I spoke slowly. I listened carefully. I responded clearly. My mouth moved naturally, without fighting me. When the call ended, I sat in silence, smiling. I realized something important had changed. My mouth was no longer my enemy. It had become my partner. Fluency did not arrive suddenly. It grew quietly, through repetition, patience, and courage. It grew through mistakes that taught me. It grew through conversations that scared me. It grew because I refused to stay silent. I want you to understand this. If your mouth feels heavy, it does not mean you are bad at English. It means your mouth needs training. If words disappear when you speak, it does not mean you are weak. It means you need practice. Speak every day. Speak out loud. Speak imperfectly. Let your mouth learn through movement. Do not wait until you feel ready. Readiness comes after action, not before it. There was a time when ordering coffee felt impossible. Now, conversations flow naturally. Not perfectly, but confidently. And that confidence changed my life. It helped me connect with people. It opened doors. It gave me a voice in a world where silence once felt safer. Your mouth can learn too. It only needs patience and permission to make mistakes. Permission to sound different. Permission to grow. Train your mouth, and your fluency will follow. I share stories like this every day. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.